Thank you, Sam, for joining all of us today for the second annual Wild Rover Film Festival. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with not only me, but everybody that's here in the audience, and then everybody that will be able to view this online. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you come from, where you're stationed right now, and where you shot the film?
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm based in London, London, UK. Kind of not central London, but kind of the north bit where it's a bit quieter. It's away from all the hustle and bustle. And I'm actually originally, well, my family are actually from Italy originally, and they moved to England when I was about 1 year old. So England is, English is kind of my mother tongue. I speak a bit of Italian, but there is a bit of an Italian influence there in kind of the things I do, I guess. Yeah, where did I shoot the film? The film was shot entirely in London, locally as well, because I live in a place called Enfield, which isn't particularly known for its like film scene. So I kind of thought, this would maybe try and put it on the map even a tiny bit. And so yeah, so we shot locally, and then a few other bits in studios in and around London as well.
One of the questions that I think is really, really important is about cost and when making a film. And one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you was because I believe that mockumentary films are less utilized because people don't find them as to be high quality films necessarily, but the film that you have presented is such a high quality film, and based off of the production notes that you put in through Film Freeway, I don't want to say it out loud if you're unwilling to say it, but it's not made for hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. So could you just speak to the fact of how much this film was made for, and how you were able to utilize a very, very low micro nano budget to create such an engaging and wonderful story?
Well, thank you, first and foremost. I'm glad you feel that way about the film. Yeah, the budget, production values, these are interesting questions. And, I've never made a secret of how much the film cost me to make, which was about £25,000, which I don't know in dollars. Is that maybe $35,000, something in the region of that?
Yeah, that may change tomorrow based on the economy, but yes, I think it's something similar around there.
Yeah, something in that region, and then a couple more, obviously, for festivals, traveling, promotion, that kind of. But I literally mean a couple, probably £2,000 to £3,000 more. So well under that 30K budget, which, yeah, as you say, for a feature is kind of unheard of, really, especially if you're trying to aspire for a level of quality. You can definitely make a feature for that kind of budget, but you can't really expect it to have any real kind of quality when it comes to everything, really. So I think the mockumentary, much like yourself, the mockumentary genre for me is one of my favorite genres. I like things that don't take themselves too seriously, and I think it's a perfect medium to explore a lot of other kind of genres as well. But yeah, in terms of the production values, I looked at that genre of mockumentary as the one that I could do for a budget, but make it look like it had higher production value. So the one thing, there were certain things that were like, specific that we did. For example, we used what looked like a 2-camera setup for the interviews, which actually wasn't a 2-camera setup. We ran the interviews twice. So we shot the interviews from, like a main mid kind of close up for the entire interview. And then we reran the same interview from an alternate angle. And then in the film, we were like, okay, it might look like a slightly budget Netflix version of the kind of the documentaries that we see on Netflix. So that was one. The other thing is that I found that using like a palette almost of different media, makes the film look a bit richer, not in financial sense, but just richer in terms of color and everything else. So you know, one of the just very quickly, the film consists of basically 5 short films effectively, and you know, the first film, which is Killer Pencil, that was genuinely shot on VHS, so we didn't add any filters or anything. And then, you know, the second film and the third film, those were shot on media of the time. And then we obviously shot behind the scenes as well on mini DV, and the interviews on a high-end camera. So those are all kind of conscious decisions when I was thinking about the film, and I thought, how can we add variety, and where can we elevate the production values here and there? And yeah, I think we did it. The film, you know, make no mistake, I don't think that the film looks like it was made on millions, but when I do Q&As at festivals or after the film, you know, one of the questions I always ask the audience is, how much do you think this film cost? And I always get something in the region of like 250,000, and that makes me quite happy, because obviously it costs, you know, a tenth of that. The one thing I do want to say, and I don't want to like drag on with this answer too long, but everyone did get paid, so no one worked for free. I'm not saying that people got paid lots and lots of money, but they got paid at least a minimum. Everyone got fed. You know, we had proper catering on set, so we did make it work. Because I think one of the things that people neglect straight away when they look at budget is like, right, where do we cut costs? Okay, well, let's try and get people to work for free, which I don't believe in. Let's, you know, try and cut food costs again, which I don't believe in. So that's just one thing I wanted to highlight. It was on a mega budget, but not at the expense of, you know, people's salaries and health, I guess.
The fact that you did use alternate forms of media honestly drives home the fact of how much I love the film. But secondary to that, can you speak to sort of not the corners that you had to cut, the creativity and the imagination that you had to use in terms of using these 5 short stories that are sort of put into these sequences that sort of create the story? Some of the things that you had to think outside the box in order to stretch a pound, to stretch your dollar, to make sure these things work. Can you think of any things, whether they were complete days or using a single set as multiple different sets, you know, one location as various different? Can you speak to some of these sort of conflating, that's not the right word, the ability to compress the needs of the film, but also utilize and optimize the resources that you had?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, and something that I don't think anyone has asked me yet. Yeah, so I for the best part, I served as producer on this film as well. I had to wear many, many hats, and this was again something that I targeted. So to your point, for example, about location, the set or the house that we used for the Killer Pencil film, or the scene where he's getting chased around his house and then he locks himself in the bedroom, that also doubled as one of the sets for one of the interviews for the character of Lizzie Evans, who is the actress inside the Satsuman costume. So we shot that interview in like the living room lounge area of this house, and that was like a 5-day block. So we shot Killer Pencil, we did the behind the scenes. So we shot all the Killer Pencil scenes in that house, like Monday and a Tuesday and a Wednesday. Then we did the BTS on a Thursday, and then we had actually we had 2 interviews. We interviewed the character of Lizzie and also Remi's parents. That was all in that house. So I went on Airbnb, and bear in mind that this was around the time of the pandemic as well, and I didn't want to get in trouble with anyone, so I would say to them, look, we're shooting a movie, and it was a very touchy time because of COVID, and also because, on Airbnb, if someone says we want to shoot a movie in your Airbnb, some people get the wrong idea. But thankfully we were lucky enough to find this couple who just let us use their house for a week, and we shot all of that in there. So that was a big chunk. Interviews again, 3 other interviews. So Remi's girlfriend, Megan LeBon, who was one of the actresses in Satsuman, and then the biographer, that was also shot on the same location. So we used the same room, and we used different corners, dressed them differently to look like different things. So yeah, to your point about location, that was one of the I don't know if it's easiest is the right word, but yeah, maybe a quick, easy win. Like if you can make one location serve different sets, or make different sets out of one location, then absolutely, that's a really good cost-saving exercise, I think.
So, Sam, can you discuss the role of improvisation in your filmmaking process and how it contributes to the authenticity of making a mockumentary?
Wow, what a question. Yeah. So the large part of the improvisation happened in the interview process. So the talking heads, the interviews, that's where it happened. What I did was I gave each person character treatments, and with a backstory. So each actor even had 30 to 40 page character treatments, backstory, motivations, all of that stuff. And then what I would do is, for the interviews, I would ask them questions. They didn't know necessarily the extent of the questions, and they didn't necessarily know, I don't want to say they didn't know what to answer, but it wasn't written for them. So the answers that you see on screen, for the large part, they are kind of improvised. They because for me it was important that the answers be as naturalistic as possible. So look, I found tremendous actors, and we the casting process took months, and self-tapes, auditions, and all the rest. So yeah, I can't take credit for that. But obviously there were certain points that we wanted them to hit, so we would cut and say, that was good, can you do that again, but can you include this little detail about this character, and what that this happened in such and such time, and we got there. So the improvisation in terms of the other parts, it was quite light. Like everything was scripted. So the films were scripted, the behind the scenes were scripted. Actually, now that you mention it, some of the BTS was inspired by actual real BTS that we had in the film. So we looked at it and thought that would work, so we added it. So that's where the improv came into play in the film.
Sam, how do you ensure that the audience remains engaged and invested in the story, even though they know it's a mockumentary?
Wow, good question. So at first, I don't know if promote is the right word, because it wasn't a promotion, but the way I put this film out there at first was as a documentary. And I kind of wanted to mess with the audience a bit and see what they would think. And actually, we have a large percentage of people who thought that it was real. So they would give no backstory, no context, very brief blurb or summary of the film, and then they'd watch it and go, so the bit that for me was amazing was in West Virginia, at the Q&A. Someone said to me, how did you find out about this filmmaker? And for me, that meant everything, because it was like, oh, we did it. So I would say playing this, like, not for laughs, but with a straight face throughout. And then, we know that there would be moments that people would find funny, and that was cool, but we weren't forcing it, so that for me was important. We had one reviewer who made me look at my film in a different way, and he said, look, mockumentary feels like the wrong word to me. Like docufiction seems more apt, because he said it doesn't have the tropes that you would expect from all these mockumentary films. And we had an interesting conversation, which was, yeah, but I think that's come with time, because if you look at, if you look back at Spinal Tap, for example, it didn't have the tongue-in-cheek, like wink, wink, as we call it, kind of looked at the camera, stuff that we have in mockumentaries now. And there were people who genuinely thought that this was a real rock band. The same with the Blair Witch. Blair Witch is a mockumentary, and they had an excellent marketing campaign. And again, people thought it was real. So that was the intention. We were like, let's put this film out there, and let's just pretend that it really happened. And so yeah. But yeah, to your question, in terms of people who already think that it's, or who already know it's a mockumentary, yeah, that's an interesting one, because we kind of structured the film in a way that they wouldn't know what would happen next. Like, they wouldn't know what film we would look at next, or what kind of wacky project would he would work on. So that, hopefully, that kept the interest going throughout.
Sam, what are the biggest challenges you face when creating a mockumentary, and how did you, in particular, overcome those challenges?
Good question. Some of the challenges lay in, although I was very lucky to find amazing cast and crew, but initially there were some hurdles where it was hard, where I found it hard to really convey what we were trying to do with this film. And especially from with the lead actor, for example, who did an excellent job as Remi, but he asked me a lot of questions that are within his right. What are my character motivations and that kind of thing. And to me, I would say, look, what we're trying to do is, just trust me. Like, do your thing, but trust me. And because this is a different kind of film, it's a mockumentary, but we're trying to play it straight. And so that was quite tough. I think the other thing was, I found a lot of comedy actors, but they had to basically unlearn a lot of stuff, because as a comedy actor, there's a certain the way you kind of say things, or you do things, you do them for to get the humor going. And actually, I was basically saying to them, we're not trying to be funny, but you will be funny. And that was very hard to communicate to people. And I think lastly, from a cinematography kind of view, in fact, all of the crew, what I said to them was that I said, we're all geared as professionals, we're all geared, I guess, to a certain standard, and try and hit not perfection, but something excellent. Like, you want to deliver a sound, you want to deliver the best sound. If you want to get the right camera angles, and you want to get everything on point. And I said, we need to unlearn that. Like, this is a mockumentary, and it's about a filmmaker whose talent was dubious, like, not necessarily a very good filmmaker. So it's actually surprisingly bad to make a good bad film. And that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to make good bad films. And I said, let's not make good films, because then people won't believe it. He has to be a bad filmmaker. So there were scenes, for example, where the lead character gets stretchered off, and he's in the ambulance. And I remember getting into a massive argument with my director of photography, because he wanted to get really close into the ambulance. And I said, yeah, but if this footage was shot by a bystander or by another cast or whatever, they wouldn't necessarily go into the ambulance and stick a phone or a camera into the characters' faces, So we found, we compromised, because I wanted to shoot it from afar, and he got a bit closer. So those are some of the challenges, trying to figure out that this genre has a lot of nuances, and that you kind of have to try and get right, otherwise the whole thing kind of collapses, really.
The last thing, or we send you off to go pick up your children. I would like to do this, and I didn't tell you this beforehand, but we are going to be formally presenting you with the best feature film for this year's festival. So it'll look sort of like this. I'm going to find the best sort of mailing address and send it. I might send it in the next couple of weeks, so it arrives to you by the time by the time the film festival happens, but we want to
Thank
present
you.
you with the best feature film. It was such a wonderful submission. It's such a wonderful film, and for me and a lot of other people here, it was an easy choice because it was so well done. It was so unique, had such a amazing complexity to it that people may not know on the face value of a mockumentary sometimes how difficult they are to make and how believable they are to make as well. So thank you so much for submitting it. I can't wait to send you this award, and I hope you can find some use of it in England and the UK as well.
That's awesome. Absolutely. Thank you so much. You know, it's yeah, I wasn't expecting that. You know, festivals, this film has been at a few festivals, but I think that a lot of festival directors don't know really what to do with the film because it is a mockumentary, and I think that comes with a certain stigma sometimes. But yeah, I mean, we worked so hard on this film, and there was COVID. We had Brexit over here, so which meant that because we have an international cast and crew, a lot of them had to go back to their home countries to sort out their visas.
Right.
Like it was a bit of a nightmare at times. So yeah, look, thank you. Yeah. I'm desperately trying to get someone to maybe make an appearance from, I can't make any promises, but potentially Remi's girlfriend, the actress Sarah, she's got friends in Miami, so she might go and see them and then come down to, I don't know if it's up or down, but to Tampa, up.
Yeah.
My brother was a bit bad. So yeah, I'll let you know for sure.
Okay, great. Well, if she is able to make it, I will certainly present her with this in person. If not, I'll send it over to you. And we are, again, so thankful. So thank you, Sam, for taking the time to talk to me. And we'll screen your film right now.